What traumatized you so badly it changed your whole way of living? Please like and subscribe to support us. Finding out at 15 that my suspicion of being adopted really was true, which explained why my sister was on a pedestal, and they raised me like they were Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia. I found out that my uncle was really my bio dad, who put me up for adoption but kept literally all of his other kids, and my cousin was really my older brother who had passed away 3 days before I found all this out. Mom and dad were really aunt and uncle, and they were reluctant to adopt me in the first place. I was, to them, a literal physical embodiment of a mistake they couldn't go back on. It doesn't sound too traumatic when typed out, but when I was younger, we always had debt collectors/bailiffs at the door. Sometimes I'd be home alone, and they'd be pounding at the door, shouting through the letterbox. There were even times they ended up in the house and would start the process of calculating all of our items they were going to take away. This happened throughout the majority of my childhood/teen years. Admittedly, it was a lot scarier to me then. However, I am now 21 and still panic when the door knocks, and I'm not expecting anyone. A kid I went to school with was being systematically tortured at home by his sadistic mother. It was kindergarten, but I remember him having marks on his arms. I was just a kid and didn't know they were cigarette burns. So no adult stepped in to help this kid, and one day I guess his mother decided it would be a good idea to put him in the dryer. She killed him and tried to say it was an accident, but thankfully they arrested her, and she got life in prison. His name was Anthony. I think about him all the time. The first girl I had a crush on died over 7 years ago. We met through mutual friends, went on some type of double date, which basically consisted of me, a friend and her cousin staying the night at her place. I was just so attracted to her I couldn't believe she would be into me until she was sitting on my lap making out with me. Things got a little messy afterwards. We did meet on/off a few times, then she broke it off because of some rumors she heard about me. Still have no clue what she was on about, though I failed to address it properly. Got back in touch 6 months later, and we started getting closer again, then, dead silence. 3 years later, I went to the hospital in my hometown because of a back injury. I met her there by accident, bound to a wheelchair and completely drained, couldn't have weighed more than 40 kilograms, most likely less. We had one final, short and awkward conversation. Then, she was brought back to her room by a nurse. A week later, she was dead. So many things left unsaid, so many wasted opportunities of happiness, and the overbearing feeling that life was just so fragile. It could all be over so quickly. After that, I decided to live with no regrets. 7.5 years later and I tried to make the best out of everything and leave no stone unturned. I might not have been perfect, but I'm quite happy with how things turned out. In any case, rest in peace, Linda. 1992 to 2014. I hope you're in a better place now. You sure deserve it. Someone leaving me a voicemail before they committed suicide. I must have replayed that message over 100 times, and I have never looked at any of my friends the same since. I tell people I will always look at them under a microscope when it comes to their mental health because, well, I feel like I can't afford not to anymore. My wife having an affair with an ex shortly after I spent my savings on a house for us. Lost a wife, stepson, pets, house, money and my secondary job all in one day. It was over 2 years ago, and I still have so many unchecked feelings towards it. Disrupted my concentration at my main job and gave me severe depression. I struggle daily to find inner peace to move on, but it feels hopeless. The story of that young father in Utah that died while stuck upside down in a cave still haunts me. He crawled down a tight passage, thinking it was a different location. It was a dead end. He was completely upside down. Only his ankles were visible. Everyone tried to rescue him, but it was impossible. He died after being in that position for 28 hours. I will never go into a cave. Even if it's like made for children. You will never see me in a natural underground structure. Seeing what people are capable of doing to animals is some of the most sickening shit you will ever see. I used to work part-time at a shelter for their veterinarian. I'm a vet tech, and I had to leave after 2 years. I still am in therapy over some of the things I saw. And the animals are so forgiving, it's just so utterly heartbreaking. It really puts it into perspective how evil some people in this world are. Seeing these animals in their condition and how they reacted to me helping or even doing things that were painful but for their own good changed me forever. It gave me the patience I never had, understanding I never had. I honestly used to not be the nicest person. But since working with these animals, even though it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, it really did teach me how to be kind and patient with basically everything and everyone. Besides animal abusers or abusers in general, y'all can get a spiky bat to the head. I dated this guy and really liked him. I loved him, actually. We had a really amazing connection. He was a year older than me but graduated early and was already forging a great career for himself in construction. I was just starting my senior year in high school, and I just felt like the timing wasn't right. I broke it off. He took it really hard at first, and we didn't really talk for a while. He dated someone else, and so did I. The school year went by, then the following summer, and then I went to college. It didn't go well, and I ended up back at home. The summer after my freshman year in college, we found our way back to each other. We weren't dating again, but we were talking a lot and were pretty open about our feelings towards each other and about what went wrong the first time around and how things had changed since then. He was moving to Hawaii, and he was just like, "Look, I want you to come with me. I love you, I always have, let's just cut the bullshit." He was going on a trip to see some friends who'd moved to California, and he wanted me to think about it while he did that. Got set up in Hawaii, and to get back to him. Well, I don't want to get into details, but there was a freak accident, and he drowned and died. I have never been more devastated in my entire life. I miss him to this day, and I think about him all the time still. He was gone 12 years in September. I'm married and have a child, a family of my own. But I'll never not wonder what might have been. Gone before his time. He was like the best person I ever knew. Everyone loved him. Everyone. It's true, only the good die young. When I was 17, my dad left my mom. The following months were torture for me, and my 14-year-old sister, since we had to see him every weekend and for him to give us money for groceries for the week. He kept control of the family business. My mom wouldn't see him at all because she hated him, so all contact was with us. Those days were like torture for me. He would just either be angry silent most of the time, or he would be guilt-tripping us. I used to cry back at home every single time after while locked in the bathroom so nobody could see me cry. The thing is that after some time, he stopped giving us money for groceries by his own free will. I had to ask for it every time. After a few weeks of that, he said to me that all I ever wanted of him was money. I have never asked for anything again in my life, not from him and not from anybody else. I also don't let myself be seen crying. I'd like to say that all that crap made me stronger, but to be honest, it just made me fucked up inside. Being made to stand in front of the entire class when I was around 10 to 11 years old while being berated by our class advisor. She accused me of writing a note she allegedly found along the hallway, bad-mouthing and cursing her. I have no idea why she zeroed in on me, considering I have no record of academic delinquencies prior to that and was a fairly normal student. The experience of 50 students looking at you while an adult is screaming at you, calling you things as if you were the spawn of the devil, is legitimately humiliating. Since then, I've been a loner and tried my very best not to mingle with anyone so that I wouldn't be caught up in anyone's troubles. I hate my elementary school. It was like a bad omen in my life. When I was in first grade, I liked a boy in my class. We were great friends for most of that year. He became sick and passed away before the school year ended. Broke my heart, and I really didn't understand it. Then when I was in second grade, there was a boy and his sister that I became good friends with. He and his sister were hit by a drunk driver one weekend, and they both died. So after losing my best friends in only a couple of years, I really became a loner. I've never really made good friendships with anyone since then. So afraid of losing them. I'm now in my 60s and quite happy being by myself. Having to don full PPE and being the only person allowed to visit my father in ICU whilst he was intubated on a ventilator due to COVID because I am a nurse in that hospital. Seeing him intubated and requiring multiple machines to keep him alive, then watching him die from it a few weeks later, all whilst just hoping he could hear me when I spoke to him and knew I was there with him through his last moments. I have a few. 1. I was bullied so badly I had to change my name. 2. This person I thought I was friends with for 7 years turned out to be a shitty person. It took years to realize her manipulation and lying. Her main tactic to keep me close was to send me sewer slide notes saying it's my fault if she dies, as well as telling me it was fun to carve things into your body. She also faked mental illness to garner sympathy as well as faking being a part of the LGBTQ community, including faking being trans and on T-hormones. She is a terrible human being, and I still can't form properly relationships because of her. 3. Finding out my parents never wanted children from other relatives making me realize why I suffered years of emotional abuse. I get treated the worst out of my 4 other siblings, and I am the oldest. I'm guessing my parents, now being older, were fine when having my younger siblings but had a big problem with me. It hurts realizing all the things said to you were not even out of a burst of the anger of the moment but because you're genuinely not wanted. Not really traumatizing, but just really hurt me. My cousin committed suicide 2 weeks ago, and I don't know what to do cause I'm just numb all the time now. He was my best friend, and I miss him so much. I want to ask my aunt if I could have one of his belongings so I can have something from him close to me, but I'm afraid to ask. I kinda just want to die because I can't deal with this anymore. My mom passing away. It's long, but it's the most I've ever shared. She was literally the glue that held my brother, my dad and I together. She was funny, smart, caring, and beautiful. She was the perfect mother. In 2016 my whole family was chasing career, and we rarely saw each other. Holidays we acted like we were close for a few hours, and we would go back to our corners of life. Then my mom had a stroke. It shook my whole family. She shouldn't have lived, but she did. Doctors told us to make arrangements before they started emergency surgery. But she lives, and it took her months and months of PT before she was released. I spent 8 hours at work and would come to ICU for the night to be with her until my dad or brother showed up in the morning. Rinse repeat. Surrounded by people dropping like fucking flies. Alarms going off, suits coming in, families crying as I watched my mom with a tube down her throat, not knowing if I would have to speak to the suits that night. She was diagnosed with moyamoya, which in Japanese means a puff of smoke representing the lack of visual blood flow in the brain. A disease that is often diagnosed in children between the ages of 10 to 14 or adults over the age of 40 from Asian descent. Which my mom was neither. A rise in blood pressure with moyamoya is a death sentence. It should have, but it wasn't. So she recovers. She had to do 2 cerebral bypasses where they take a vein from your neck and lay it on your brain. Your brain incorporates the vein to give itself a healthy blood flow. We did one side and let her self-heal for a few months before attempting the other side. She was then diagnosed with breast cancer. We fell apart. She couldn't get the second bypass because chemo was needed, and it would wreck the body to have surgery while battling cancer. She lost her hair after growing it back due to the cerebral bypass. She was so strong. She beat cancer, had her second bypass, and it was finally over. We went back to our normal lives as if nothing happened. I went back to work, my brother went back on the road, and my parents bought a house. She couldn't work anymore, so my dad had to work harder. I drank harder, I distanced harder and isolated myself up until a few years ago when I went to therapy. A few months ago, we all met up after she came back from vacation with my dad. She was in mid-conversation when she suffered a massive stroke. We had to go back to that fucking hospital. Her body suffered for almost a week before she passed. I'm not sure how this changes me, but I feel changed. I don't know if some things are better or worse. I just don't know. My parents never asked for a thing their entire lives, and the world gave them this. It gave us this, and it breaks my heart.